As we come to this second Sunday of Easter, or what has now become known as Divine Mercy Sunday, at the request of St. John Paul II when he was our Pope. And we always have this particular gospel on this Sunday. And quite often, we have labeled one of the main characters in this gospel by a name beyond his name. We have Thomas today, and quite often we call him Doubting Thomas. And when we reflect on that, sometimes I think Thomas, can get a bad rap on that because he doubted. But when we really think about it, isn't doubting part of being human? We doubt, we question. Maybe sometimes we even feel embarrassed about doubting, but it's a part of our journey. And as we look at Thomas, I think we can almost unpack what Thomas did on three different layers, three different levels of doubt. That I think sometimes maybe we can look at our own lives and say, maybe I sometimes doubt in those same kinds of ways. One of the ways that we can say that Thomas doubted was he doubted those who he was with. He didn't believe his friends. He didn't trust in what they were saying to them. First of all, it's kind of ironic. Why wasn't Thomas with them? So obviously something was going on there with Thomas, I would say. But when they came to him and said, "We have seen the Lord," he didn't say, "Oh, wow, I believe in you guys." No, he doubted what they were saying. After traveling with them for 3 years and really, I would imagine, coming to close bonds with them, didn't believe them, wasn't willing to believe them. So he doubted them. How could these guys, really? Come on now. And maybe we do that in our lives too. Maybe we have doubts about those around us at times. Maybe somebody's trying to bring us a message of Christ or a message that they've experienced, maybe an experience that they've had of faith, and we just, well, no, that can't be. You can't be right. Maybe that's an issue that we've had with a spouse. We don't always believe them, or a parent or a child. Do we doubt or do we trust? Do we believe or not? And there's valid reasons that we can question at times. But there's other times, are we just doubting because, nah, I can't put myself out there enough to believe that. Because that's what Thomas would have had to do with those others. They were telling him something that seemed very unusual. Now maybe we need to be looking at in our own lives, are we trusting enough of those around us at times? And then a second layer of doubt that I think we can see in Thomas, and that is, I think he doubted in himself. Perhaps that's why he wasn't with the other apostles. He was still sorting through some things. Because we hear in another part of the gospel, Jesus is having this conversation with the disciples, with the apostles, and what does Thomas say? Thomas says, "We will go with you, Lord, and be willing to die with you." Good for Thomas. He was getting it. That's what Jesus was looking for, that kind of commitment. Brave Thomas. And yet, where was Thomas at the crucifixion? We don't hear his name listed at those who were at the foot of the cross. We don't hear him with Peter in the courtyard trying to see what was going on. We don't hear about him at all. So this man that had this bravado that said, "We're going to die with you," didn't. And so maybe he was doubting himself, and maybe that's why he went away and was off on his own. But when he was off on his own, he was missing the support and help of those around him. And maybe that's what we do with ourselves sometimes. Maybe we doubt what we're able to do. And rather than turning to those around us to support us, to assist us, we go run off on our own. And we're not truly trying to say, okay, let's see how I can work this through. Another level that Thomas doubted, obviously, is he doubted God. Jesus was very clear. We can look at the scriptures and see very clearly how Jesus stated what was going to happen. He didn't hide it. He said, "I'm going to be arrested, I'm going to be beaten, and I'm going to be crucified, die, and then I will rise again." Very clear. But obviously, Thomas doubted that. Because if he didn't doubt that, then when the apostles would have told him that, then he would have said, oh, great, he did what he said he was going to do. You know, maybe that's where we're at it sometimes too. We doubt God. We look at our lives and say, if God is God, then why am I going through what I'm going through? This should be different. I shouldn't be suffering in this way. I shouldn't have to deal with the death of a loved one in this way. I shouldn't have lost my job. I shouldn't be struggling to try and just meet the basic necessities in life if God is really God. And we can have those doubts, we can have those questions that happen in our lives. You know, and at the end of the day, I don't think doubts are bad. Or at least if I look at what happened in our gospel today, Jesus didn't say, hey, Thomas, you are a doubter. I don't want to have anything to do with you. We don't hear any judgment at all. Right away, Jesus says, come, put your finger here and see my hands. If that's what it's going to take for you to believe, then here you go. You know, with whatever you're struggling with, whatever doubts or questions or whatever are there, I want to be there for you. Jesus was willing to meet him where he was. And that's what Jesus does with each one of us, if we're willing to act on those doubts. If Thomas would have just said, okay, fine, I think you guys made up a story, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore, and he kept running away, not good. But he came back with the apostles. He was in that room 8 days later, ready to move on, ready to see what was going to happen. And that's what we need to do. Whatever doubts, whatever questions we go through, we need to be willing to try and get through that. Maybe turn to those around us to help us through that. Or at the minimum, and probably at the starting point, to turn to our God. And that's the other element that we're celebrating today, Divine Mercy Sunday. We have a God who loves us so much that embraces us in our doubts, in our sin, and wants to share with us his love, his mercy, his forgiveness. You know, the revelations that were given to St. Faustina back in the 1930s, you know, that Jesus revealed to her, and he wanted everyone else to know how much he loves us, cares for us, and doesn't want us to be in doubt, doesn't want us to be in sin, doesn't want us to feel abandoned or rejected or bad about ourselves. He wants us to know his love and his abundant mercy. That's why we call it Divine Mercy Sunday. We're sharing in, celebrating the great mercy of the divine that is being offered to each one of us. Jesus, just as he said multiple times in our gospel today, peace be with you. That's what his mercy offers to us. Whenever we're in the state of sin, whenever we're confused or doubting or whatever it might be, we're not at peace. It's all turmoil inside of us. And his mercy and his forgiveness, especially if we go to the sacrament of reconciliation, brings us that peace. That's what Jesus wants. When he says, peace be with you so many times, and we hear that in so many different encounters after the resurrection, it's a reminder for us that yes, our lives are not always peaceful, but Jesus wants to bring peace to them. And that's what this Sunday in particular is supposed to be reminding us of, that divine mercy. And one of the ways that we can enter into that divine mercy, you know, we're encouraged to go with what's called the ABC method. When it comes to divine mercy, there are three things. ABC. A, ask for his mercy. That's the first thing that we need to do. Ask for his mercy that he so willingly and so much wants to share with us. Bring it to prayer. Bring it to the sacraments. Ask God for his mercy. He wants to give it to you and I. But we need to ask. And then the second thing, and as people who have received his mercy after we have asked, the B is be merciful. In receiving his mercy, then we need to be merciful to other people. We need to share that mercy with others. And then the C is to completely trust in Jesus. If anybody is familiar with the image of the divine mercy, usually at the bottom it says, Jesus, I trust in you. Because that's what we need to do. We need to completely trust in him. And if we ask for his mercy, we're merciful with others, and we completely trust in him, then we will be at peace. Then we will not doubt in a way that turns us away from God. Those doubts will lead us to deeper questions to deepen our relationship with him. That's what we're being encouraged to reflect upon, or one of the things perhaps that we're being encouraged to reflect upon this weekend. Not to get caught up in doubts are bad. They're bad if we let them stay there. Let us turn those doubts into opportunities to seek further, to work together, to turn to our Lord, to seek his mercy, share his mercy, completely trust in him, so that we can be people like Thomas and say, "My Lord and my God," as we go forth as his pilgrims and as his disciples.